Hello, welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. Lawmakers responding to the new January 6th footage that has just been released. It's appearing to show that scenes at the Capitol building were much more peaceful than previously publicized.
Fox host Tucker Carlson reviewed the January 6th footage with permission from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Carlson aired parts of the footage on Monday night, saying that most people in the Capitol acted more like sightseers than vandals.
Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol.
On Tuesday, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer responded. The senator criticized Carlson's interpretation of the footage, saying people's lives were put in danger.
At one point, I was within 30 feet of the rioters. One of them, I was told, shouted out, "Let's get him," before my detail pulled me away, and we ran in the other direction.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell didn't comment on the footage and instead said,
"I want to associate myself entirely with the opinion of the chief of the Capitol Police."
The chief's memo calls Carlson's conclusions offensive and misleading and adds, "One false allegation is that our officers helped the rioters and acted as tour guides. This is outrageous and false." It also says the officers were outnumbered in trying to use de-escalation tactics. In his release of the footage, Carlson focused on Jacob Chansley, the so-called QAnon shaman. Carlson says Chansley didn't violently march through the Capitol, but was instead guided through the building by Capitol Police.
Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down.
Chansley was later sentenced to almost 4 years in prison. Republican Congressman Mike Collins from Georgia responded to the new footage, saying, "I've seen enough. Release all J6 political prisoners now." Former President Trump has praised the release, writing, "Our country and indeed the world can see what really went on during the January 6th events." Speaker McCarthy reportedly said he's trying to make the footage available to the public, but hasn't given a timeline yet. Reporting by Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Calls to ban TickTock are intensifying and surpassing party lines. On Capitol Hill today, 2 lawmakers introduced a bill to do just that. This as China warns the U.S. to pump the brakes. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup with more.
Democrat Senator Mark Warner and GOP Whip John Thune stood alongside a bipartisan group of senators today to unveil a bill that would allow the Commerce Department to take action against tech giants that are ran by nations deemed as foreign adversaries. Now, this includes China. One goal with this bill is to lay the groundwork to implement a national ban on the popular social media app TikTok.
The Chinese Communist Party has proven over the last few years that is willing to lie about just about everything. That likely won't end with TikTok.
Canada's taking this action. The EU's taking this action. India banned TikTok years ago.
And Warner's comments stand out. As a Democrat, he's willing to directly say that former President Trump was right to implement policy regarding TikTok because of the national security threat that it poses.
As they've, as Senator Romney was just saying, exported their own surveillance state in China and around the world, this is doing damage to humanity.
And one major goal with this bill is to allow the government the ability to make the case to TikTok users as for why this app is a national security threat. And in a sense, this is the only enforcement mechanism that this bill has, because senators clarified that it would not allow the government to go after individual users that are using TikTok. And Senator Warner also says that he hopes that American tech platforms can come in and fill that gap to help TikTok users transition. And the House Foreign Affairs Committee already advanced a similar bill showing that this is a priority for lawmakers in both chambers of Congress. While it is easily expected to pass the Republican-led House, its fate here in the Senate is less clear. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer today was asked about it, saying he has not yet looked at this piece of legislation.
So, Melina, this is part of a string of actions Congress has taken to counter China's influence in the United States. Last week, the House launched probes into China on multiple fronts, from an economic angle and pushing a bill to combat the CCP's forced organ harvesting. Those probes into China are continuing this week.
So we will see a lot more action with regards to China over on the House side this week. They will be probing the origins of COVID. The Intel Committee right now is marking up a bill to do just that. Other committees are also looking into things like the CCP's IP theft, etc. So we can tell that China has definitely been a priority for House leadership thus far. And this comes as the CCP is now warning the U.S. to back off.
If the U.S. does not hit the brakes, but continues to speed down the wrong path, no amount of guardrails can prevent derailing, and there will surely be conflicts and confrontation.
And today I asked those senators who are pushing for that TickTock bill their direct response to the CCP's quote here. Here's what they told me.
$500 billion a year of intellectual property theft. Entities called the Confucius Institutes at many universities that were used to prey upon Chinese exchange students.
And this comes as many lawmakers on the Select Committee on China are saying that a strong posture from the U.S. towards China is needed right now to protect global universal values like freedom. Steve, back to you.
NTD's Melina Wisecup reporting from Capitol Hill. And TikTok is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Chinese efforts to infiltrate the United States. To discuss Chinese infiltration as well as efforts to stop them, we just had a chance to sit down with Congresswoman Diana Hardberger of Tennessee. Congresswoman Diana Hardberger, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be here.
Congresswoman, there's a lot of attention that's been shifted to China right now. What are you sensing in the Hill? What are going to be some of the next steps to hold China accountable?
The first thing we voted on was the Strategic Petroleum Reserve Act, where, you know, we may have never have known that we had sold, that the Biden administration sold oil to China, but we put a stop to that with this legislation. And, you know, the funny thing is we had a lot of bipartisan support on that. That's one thing. You know, don't embolden your adversaries by giving them what we are paying a higher price for. That's ludicrous. And, you know, the new, it's not, I was on the China Task Force, but there's a new, something similar to the China Task Force that Mike Gallagher, Representative Gallagher, is doing. It's a strategic committee to look at different things like things I've talked about for 25 years as far as them holding us hostage because they hold 90% of the world's active pharmaceutical ingredients and finished products. And, you know, they're going to be looking at things like that. What's the next move that China's going to make against Taiwan? There's many things ahead, and they just blatantly and are emboldened to say, look, this is our 2035 plan, and we have a 100-year plan, and nobody's going to stop us. Look at the balloon, for example.
Right. What are your constituents saying with China in the news? Specifically, you're seeing this balloon, you're seeing the origins of COVID now being validated by the Department of Energy's intelligence wing and also the FBI director.
Yeah.
What do you make of all of this?
Well, 2 years ago on Homeland, I got to talk to and question Director Wray. I said, do you agree that China is the biggest national threat to our security? He goes, yes, Congresswoman, I do. Because of the stealing intellectual property. Look at what TikTok is doing to our young people. You know, we have a hearing coming up on energy and commerce with the CEO of TikTok, and I can't wait. And it's coming up in March. You just get ready because it's going to be a good one. And it's just, they are infiltrating, you know, and I have to bring this up. I went to Israel over the break on with an educational society about U.S.-Israeli, relationships and how important and how critical they are, because we're wanting to put an FDA facility in the Middle East, in Israel, as a matter of fact, to push back on China. But even they, you know, they're trying to get away and tell their people, look, don't do business with China. It just emboldens them. We need to be self-reliant, and I've said this many times, self-reliant, and then depend on our allies for things that we need that we can't make right here. But it is the biggest national security threat to our country is China and their plans to take us down. And the reason I mentioned Israel, the briefing was They are poisoning our youth with fentanyl. It's coming from the Chinese, and the prelogs and analogs are coming across the Mexican border. But the same thing, and it's going to wipe out a generation here. The same thing's happened in Syria with another drug. Their plan is to take a generation out who will be able to save Syria. It's the same thing that's happening right here. China can poison America, take out the youthful generation that will be here to protect us from adversaries. I mean, you couldn't have made this up even 10 years ago, but now we see it coming to fruition right here.
Speaking of education in our youth, you have the poisoning of fentanyl, but you also have the poisoning of the mind.
Yes.
You've been very outspoken about this.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of Congress's priorities when it comes to education?
Speaker McCarthy, with the Commitment to America, we have a parental bill of rights. Parents should be involved in their children's education. They should absolutely know what's being taught. They should see what we're paying for in the curriculum and what the results are. If you want transcripts, and we want to protect our children's privacy, that's a huge part of the Commitment to America and the Parental Bill of Rights. Look, we've seen and it's not been overnight, it's been happening for the last 40 years, the indoctrination in our higher educational systems. And now, I have grandsons, 6 and 8, and I absolutely worry about their future. That's why I'm here doing what I'm doing.
Congresswoman Diana Hardberger, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
President Biden catching the attention of Republicans today by pushing a new plan to fund Medicare. The method, raising taxes on wealthy Americans. NTD's Iris Tao has more from the White House.
President Biden is proposing to raise taxes on Americans making more than $400,000 a year to fund Medicare. That's after he said last week,
I want to make it clear, I'm going to raise some taxes.
Writing in a Tuesday op-ed in the New York Times, Biden says his plan will, quote, make the Medicare Trust Fund solvent beyond 2050 without cutting a penny in benefits. And the White House on Tuesday hailing the president's plan, saying it'll fund Medicare for another generation and
the president would not raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000. We're going to make sure that rich pay their fair share.
The Biden's measure will most likely get blocked in the House, where Republicans are in control and opposing any tax hikes. Here's the Senate Minority Leader on Tuesday saying Americans should be thankful that Republicans won't let the measure go through.
Massive tax increases, more spending, all of which the American people can thank the Republican House for, will not see the light of day.
Republicans have also denied accusations by the Biden administration that they're trying to cut Medicare, saying all they want is to cut spending without hurting Medicare or Social Security. Meanwhile, amid debates over the debt ceiling, President Biden will unveil his full budget plan this Thursday and is expected to talk more about his plan to make wealthy Americans pay more in taxes to fund Medicare. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
2 of the 4 Americans kidnapped by gunmen in a Mexico border city have been found dead, and one of the 2 survivors is severely injured. The governor of the region said that ambulances and security personnel were attending to them. All 4 were reportedly discovered in a medical clinic in Matamoros, the city where the kidnapping took place. An unnamed official told CNN that investigators believe a Mexican cartel mistook the Americans for a Haitian drug ring, and that the 4 victims have no concerning criminal history. Meanwhile, the investigation and search for those responsible is still ongoing. The U.S. has issued a travel advisory for the region, adding Tamaulipas to the list of Level 4 do not travel areas. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.